What is up, guys? Daniel here, and I am going to be reading a fic that my friend Cody wanted me to read and wanted me to record. It is called The Amorous Adventures of Scootaloo's Helmet by Fiddlebottoms. When Rainbow Dash experiences shameful illicit sex lust for Scootaloo's helmet, she spirits the sensual headgear away to her love nest. How will Scootaloo handle the heartbreak? Not well. Not well is the answer. Okay, well, the first chapter is called Flight and Fancy. I don't know. Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle were in the treehouse weaving a net, or a sweater, or a doghouse. After countless misadventures, the two fillies had given up on predicting the outcomes of their actions. Instead, they had decided to embrace the way chaos seemed to work out in their favour. Their unstudious labour was interrupted by scrambling of hooves and excited squealing as Scootaloo bounced into the room. "Did I tell you? Did I tell you?" "Yes," replied Apple Bloom, pounding a nail through the fabric. "We all know about the boogie you all found yesterday." "No, that's not it. We also know how it tasted, what colour it was, what shape it was, and we said about it at that time," said Sweetie Belle. She carefully cross-stitched a take-out menu into their progress. What? Into their work in progress. "No," insisted Scootaloo, "this has nothing to do with my boogers. It's even more amazing than that." She could hardly contain her excitement as she burst out. "Rainbow Dash is going to adopt me." "Adopt Rainbow Bloom?" Sorry, it's 3:30 in the morning. This is a blind reading. I don't English. "Adopt?" Apple Bloom stared quizzically at her friend. "Adoption is for orphans. Y'all have parents. They live on the other side of town." "That's the boring side of town where boring ponies with stable jobs live." Sweetie Belle nodded in agreement. Her parents lived on the boring side of town, which is why she spent as much time as possible at Rarities or Apple Bloom, or wandering in the woods, or hiding under the tables of her classmates. Anywhere that wasn't the boring side of town. "Okay," said Apple Bloom, dropping her hacksaw and resigning herself that she was not going to finish her project. "When did she say she was going to adopt y'all?" "Earlier that day." Rainbow Dash reclined restlessly upon her cloud. Well, she shouldn't own a cloud, but she was making use of it. It is very rude to interrupt people while they are trying to nap in public. However, no amount of trying can stop her mind from returning to Rarity's words earlier that day. "You need something hard in your life, Rainbow. It can't be healthy to spend all your time in soft, fluffy clouds. You need something hard, long, and perhaps administered by a close friend." I know this is M-rated, but, something about the ferocious longing illuminating in her friend's lilac eyeshadow had poofed the daredevil. Oh, spooked. Why did I read poofed? And Rainbow Dash made an excuse before fleeing the boutique. Still, the Pegasus reclined in her cloud. Those words tickled something in the back of her mind. She certainly liked hard things. The more difficult, the better. She wasn't sure about long, though. Attention span had never been her strong suit. It was at that moment she looked down from her cloud and saw something short, hard, and being carried by a friend. Well, by a Scootaloo. Close enough. She stared at the round surface of Scootaloo's helmet. Little beads of liquid rolled across the purple surface. With each stroke of the filly's legs, her head bobbed and wiggled with the headgear slightly. Each wiggle, in turn, sent a shadow down Rainbow Dash's spine until she came to rest somewhere on the front of her hips. What? That was when the Pegasus knew she had to have it. Pipsqueak! Scootaloo! The orange Pegasus stopped and turned towards the sky where her idol was descending from a cloud. The sun streamed around Rainbow Dash's wings, casting her into angelic relief as her hooves spread to touch the ground. "Rainbow Dash!" she squealed. "So, Scootaloo, you like me, right? Of course, you're the most awesome Pegasus ever. So, you wouldn't mind if her voice caught in her throat. The filly had begun bouncing in excitement, causing light reflecting from the white surface of her helmet to glint merrily. The light had Rainbow Dash's eyes with magpie fascination, demanding her attention. How could she even begin to explain herself what she wanted, what she needed? Her heart was speaking a language that the filly wasn't old enough to understand. "Come to my house," was all she could finish with. The filly stared at her hero, uncertain if she'd just heard what she thought she'd heard. "You seem to have a good head on your shoulders, so maybe..." Scootaloo wasn't certain what to make of the first compliment her intelligence had ever received. Still, a compliment from her hero! Her relation continues to build as she manufactured bizarre fantasies in her head. "Here, let me take that helmet off your hooves," said Rainbow Dash, "and you can come by later and I'll give it back?" It ended as a question. Stupid Dash. Stupid Dash. Of course, shouted the orange Pegasus to the Pegasus of another colour. Rainbow Dash could believe how lucky she rested the helmet upon her couch. It sat uncertainly on the uneven surface. Oh, don't worry, Scootaloo, the Pegasus reassured the headgear. She'll be fine without you for a while. The helmet leaned indecisively. What am I reading? Come now, don't you think you should have a little time for yourself? Rainbow Dash was now openly pleading. This was stupid. She was behaving like a little filly, not Fluttershy. Ugh. She was better than begging. She was the Rainbow Dash, best young flyer. Sonic Rainbow Boomer, bold, reckless. The Pegasus steeled herself and made the impossible possible. With a sudden lunge, she planted her lips on the brim of the helmet. As she pulled back, she resisted the urge to wince. What if she was going too fast? What if she just ruined anything? The helmet fell under the crest of her lips, revealing a soft, inviting interior and the sexy NC logo. Rainbow Dash didn't need any further... I can't read this. Rainbow Dash didn't need any further invitation. I knew you'd come round. Scootaloo felt some trepidation as she held down the streets of Ponyville. Without her NC-approved helmet, she felt exposed, and also a bad example to children. Still, Pixie didn't wear helmets to fly, and that was a much more dangerous thing than riding a scooter. The filly had to grow up sometime. She pulled to a stop below Rainbow Dash's house. Now, how was she going to make it up there? She could call for assistance, but that was the boring way that her boring parents would do it. No, she was going to get up there on her own. A pile of crates with several boards leaning against them caught her eye. She made the makeshift ramp to full speed. Her bones rattled as she bounced up the ramp, now using her wings to accelerate her. Scootaloo leapt into the air from the edge of the ramp. Wind tugged at her mane as she lost contact with the ground beneath her. Her spirit shrilled at the air, swelling freely around her ears. This is why Pegasi never wore helmets. Rainbow Dash's porch was there, almost close enough to spit out. The air filled her nostrils and pressed against her eyes, drawing tears. She could make it. She was going to make it. Her wings flapped rapidly, propelling the scooter forward. She was above the porch, almost. She was not even with the porch, not quite. She was level than porch. Oops. She wasn't going to make it. Gravity, the meanest nag in Equestria, pulled at her. She saw Rainbow Dash's front porch pass by her head, her unprotected head, which was very soon to meet the ground. She never had been so foolish as to attempt a trick without proper protection. Maybe there'd be something soft to break her fall. Greta, called a voice beneath her. Where do you want these large crates full of rusty nails and assorted metal hoofs? I don't know, just leave beside the enormous metal spikes and bales of razor wire for a moment. Shit. With her life approaching a very pointy and violent end, Scootaloo did the one thing she saw she'd never do. She prayed. Celestia. She wasn't really a deity, so Discord, but he was encased in stone again. Nightmare Moon, no longer in commission. Forced. Was a character in a boring story that Sherry had made her read. Well, that wasn't going to work. As her mind wandered, her wings took over. They slowed her frenzy fluttering, smoothing out to an even stroke, snapping the air and catching it, and pushing it down, generated lift. The metal spikes below her slowed and came to a rest a couple feet away from her face. It took Scootaloo a moment to realise that her death had been averted. She was flying. Her scooter dropped to the ground below and clattered amongst the large metal spikes pointing towards the sky. One of the spears fell over in disappointment. She was flying! The orange Pegasus turned in the air, letting it wash around her, cool and brisk, parting like water over her fall. She traced a thermal draft towards the sun, basking in the glow on her skin. She could fly! Scootaloo spun her body, relishing the freedom from the ground. The attempt barrel roll nearly crashed her into the side of a house as she lost control. Sitting out, she realised she was starting to tire. Scootaloo turned towards Rainbow Dash's home. She couldn't wait to tell her hero. This must be the greatest day in her entire life. Although, the boogie yesterday was still pretty awesome. The Pegasus would adopt her and they'd live together in the clouds and everything would be perfect. A boring family and the loving environment they had provided for her over a decade could go sucking eggs. Oh man, the excited filly alighted on her hero's porch. If she hadn't been so busy congratulating herself, she would have heard the low moans coming from within the house. The filly wouldn't have understood what those sounds meant, but she might have heard them. Not even bothering to knock, the orange Pegasus banged through the front door, grinning from ear to ear. There was Rainbow Dash on the couch, waiting for her, and there was her helmet. Rainbow Dash's wings were flared right and sweat glistened off her body. The daredevil's mouth hung open in strange ecstasy as she pounded her lower body against the helmet, smearing it with her love juices. Oh, Scootaloo's helmet. Can I call you daddy? What? She made eye contact with her number one fan. Her enthusiastic comfing continued. For several moments, the couch squeaking and stashing continued. The grind her genitals against the plastic playmate was the only sound. The two pigs stared at each other in still silence. Scootaloo's mouth hung open, her tongue swaying gently like a banner. Rainbow Dash finally broke the quiet. No, she said, and flipped her wings. The helmet was still clutched between her muscled thighs as she floated to the front door. Scootaloo retreated backwards onto the porch. No, Rainbow Dash repeated before closing the door in the orange pony's face. Moments of ecstasy from within resumed. Oh, Scootaloo's helmet, don't stop. Below, Greta, owner of the very dangerous metal things emporium, tossed the false scooter aside and collected the rest of her wares. Scootaloo continued to stare at the door, barely noticing the clattering beneath her. The filly passed beneath, excitedly telling her mother how she'd earned the supernumeracy cutie mark. Scootaloo continued to stand, her entire body locked rigidly in place. Had she done something wrong? How could this have happened to her? Maybe she'd neglected her helmet's feelings on occasion, leaving it alone in the closet on snowy days. And maybe she didn't clean it up right away, letting the mug cake on its surface, but she'd been a good owner, right? How could her helmet betray her like that? And with her idol, too! As the sun set, a single tear slid down from her orange face. It splashed through the cloud floor and landed on the road. The door cracked open slightly, revealing a single violet eye. No. The door closed again. This is beautiful. Chapter 2, Angst and Arousal. Next morning, a freshly showered Rainbow Dash stepped out onto her porch. There was a bounce in her step, a twinkle in her eye, and her mane was slightly more dishevelled than usual. She was so busy giggling like a school filly that she almost tripped over the pitiful orange wretch curled into a ball by her door. A part of the Blue X's felt elated. Maybe the little squirt would feel twice about abandoning some pony to go follow the latest superhero trend. Despite having suddenly discovered the joys of passive-aggressive behaviour, the Pegasus knew it wasn't polite to gloat. Also, if she was going to get the emotional train wreck off her property, it would take some rarity level finesse. Scoots? Do you want to talk? No, replied the orange and purple ball of misery. Are you sure? I'm fine. Okay then, Rainbow Dash dragged the hoof through her mane. She was running out of excuses to be late. Do you want to get off my porch? Can't fly. The orange filly turned upward, hurling unspoken daggers at her hero, daring the blue Pegasus to say something. It would be better if she just jumped, daring her to say that she didn't care. I'll fly you down. How'd she gotten up here in the first place? Dash's passive-aggressive satisfaction and post-coital ecstasy withered before those accusing eyes. Do you need a ride to school? Yesterday, Scootaloo would have been elated at that offer. She would have shown off to the entire class and spent weeks telling everybody about it. Sure, Diamond Tiara had money, a cutie mark, social status, and a guaranteed college education, but she didn't get casual, platonic affection from amateur athlete. Yeah! Swag! This morning, however, was only a reminder of the elaborate fantasy life that had come crashing down around her. No, just take me to the ground. I'll walk. The two floated down to the ground in awkward silence. Words fought to break into the open. Explanation and accusation dashed together in the undertow in their brains, but nothing came up there. Are you sure you won't need help getting to school? I don't want you to be late. I'm sure, replied Scootaloo. She walked over to the ditch where her scooter had been tossed. She pulled the soiled scooter out of the slime. She shook some of the water from it, became aware she hadn't bathed last night. The scooter and the Pegasus were a perfect fit, dirty and discarded. She planted one hoof on the deck, perhaps a bit more violently than necessary, and prepared to take off. You shouldn't ride without a... Oops. Rainbow Dash tucked air into her teeth, but the words couldn't be brought back. They stared at each other for a long moment. Somewhere, the dog was barking into the wind, fighting the weather as it tucked its fluffy tail. Dogs are stupid like that, never able to recognise a battle they can't win. Wincing, Rainbow Dash took to the sky. Why did life have to be so hard? It wasn't fair. She felt very teenaged for the thought. Scootaloo didn't go to school. The thought of telling her friends about yesterday was too much to bear. So was the idea of holding her humiliation inside her. Instead, she toiled along the edge of the everfree forest. She kicked her way through the dirt. Her wings remained pressed to her sides. She would never fly again. If she deliberately crippled herself and spent the rest of her life impoverished of joy that would teach Rainbow Dash her stupid helmet a lesson, I can't speak. As she pouted, I need water, 1 second. Bloody hell. As she pouted, she deliberately kept her face turned away from Ponyball, as if she could will it away. She traced the tortured twigs and bitter branches. Eventually her thoughts faded into the background, lost in the tangled wooden labyrinth. It was peaceful out there. There were no ponies around to disrupt her or tell her she wasn't good enough. No pony could hurt her in this solipsist isolation. She travelled for hours. The sun was almost directly over her head when she saw a flash of light among the green. At first she thought it was just a trick of light. Then she saw it again, white and purple hidden amongst the foliage. Scootaloo leaned her scooter against a tree and pressed through the branches on hoof. Occasionally she lost sight of the object, but never for long. The orange Pegasus soon found herself in a clearing. The canopy above opened up, allowing a single shaft of light to fall and bathe the stump in an unearthly glow. On top of the stump rested a helmet. Its white finish reflected the sun's rays, emphasizing the bold purple stripes that ran from front to back. Its black chin strap was folded before it in quiet dignity. Scootaloo's breath caught in her throat at the sight of something so noble and majestic. This is so stupid, Cody. Why am I reading this? Slowly, so as not to startle the helmet and cause it to run away, Scootaloo approached the stump. When she was within a few inches of the helmet, she noticed a bunch of fur resting on the brim of the helmet. It looked like a fat caterpillar. "Hello?" she said, and immediately regretted opening her mouth. What if she was disturbing this fine piece of headgear? It might have sought out this spot far from any pony for its own private meditations. The helmet didn't reply, apparently lost in thought. Did some pony abandon you, too? Scootaloo asked as her hoof went to sweep the caterpillar away. However, the bristles remained attached to the brim. The touch caused the helmet to rock silently, nodding in agreement to her statement. "Guess we're in the same boat. Do you mind if I hang out with you for a while?" Hearing no objection from the object, Scootaloo slumped against the stump. Try saying that 5 times fast. A sudden impact caused the helmet to creak silently. The Pegasus looked up expectantly, but the helmet didn't finish his thought. Scootaloo turned her eyes back to her hoofs. I just don't know what I did wrong. But I'm sure you don't want to hear about it," Scootaloo said, and looked back to the helmet. Against her expectations, it made no effort to escape or complain. It only waited for her to pour out her soul to it. "My helmets and Rainbow Dash, I saw them. I'm not sure. Maybe it just started, or maybe it's been going on for months. I don't know how I didn't see the signs." The helmet didn't move or break its gaze. "I'm sure you have someone who owns you, but maybe I just want to..." The silence continued. It was a wise silence, filled with stoicism and strength. The filly scooped up the headgear in her forelegs and hugged it to her chest. The plastic was warm and firm against her body. They lay together for at least an hour, neither asked for anything more than the presence of another body, the salve to their mutual loneliness. "I love you, helmet," the filly whispered. "When a man loves a helmet..." What the heck was that? Elsewhere in the land of amazing Technicolor equines, all was not going well for Rainbow Dash. "Rainbow Dash you!" bellowed her supervisor. Strange fixture, as he descended slowly from above, the immense yellow Pegasus bore an image of a water faucet twisting around the pipe of the water to get back itself in his haunch, and spoke with a Yonaguni accent. "I've heard about your rendezvous yesterday evening." She had expected some resistance to her love from Ponyville. No pony can understand a love between a helmet and a pony. "Have you taken that kawaii filly who wears a purple mop on her head?" "Wait, no, it's not like that. I'm not a filly. You misunderstand me, Adashkun. I am proud to hear you have taken on a young one. Where I come from, Clydesdale." "You're from Clydesdale. You lived across the street from me for 8 years. "Where I vacation once a month, 1 week. Where I spent a 1 week. It is natural for adult males to take in a yoza. I do not know. You teach her the ways of love, philosophy, and how to become a great samurai." Rainbow Dash shook her head, trying to rattle something into place. The world didn't make any sense that day. All she wanted to do was rush back to the sanity of her house and the helmet she had just spent 6 hours fornicating yesterday. Instead she smiled. "Oh, yes, of course, I'm going to teach Scootaloo the way of the samurai. However, you must be cautious in your ambitions. Not all ponies are as worldly as myself. For instance, the filly's parents are rather concerned that she never came home last night, and apparently I didn't go to school either." Oh shit. Putting off returning home to a lecture from her boring parents, Scootaloo made her way to the treehouse. She couldn't wait to introduce Sweetie, Belle, and Apple Bloom to her new helmet. "I just know you're gonna love them," she gushed. The helmet said nothing quizzically. "Oh no," Scootaloo laughed. "Not like that. Not like us, I mean. You'll get along great. I bet Apple Bloom's bow have all sorts of things to talk about with you, like heads and head lice and head sweat and sitting on top of heads." Something about her partner's silence was so mysterious. The filly poked her head around the door and looked around the orchard. No pony was around, and her friends probably wouldn't be back for another hour. She returned to the helmet and leaned forward to whisper into its ear flap. "I think we'll be alone for a little while longer if you want to." Her breathy whisper faded off at the scent of fresh sweat emanating from the helmet. It was a strong smell, musky yet feminine. She teased the helmet's moustache and slid her hoof along the rim. Slowly the hoof pressed the helmet backward, meeting no resistance, and the horny head reclined back and revealed its interior. How does helmet sex work? Bus porn. Scootaloo dipped her head inside, her nostrils flaring to soak in as much of the helmet's musk as possible. She turned her head, feeling the caress of plastic against her mane and neck was all the invitation she needed. The orange Pegasus pushed forward. Her tongue slid along the firm interior, tasting the bitterness contained in it. With skill that belied her age and inexperience, she sought out every canny and crevice. Her tongue swirled along the hard plastic, teasing it. Orange hooves, guided by instinct, slid around behind the helmet and grasped the firm curvature of its dome. With a sudden push, she shoved her snout into the helmet's padding, where she could hold her breath for no longer. She came up gasping for air. A strand of saliva hung from the corner of her mouth, stretching back to the lush, welcoming padding of the plastic parlour. "Do you like that helmet?" she asked, fluttering her eyes like she'd seen Rarity do when bargaining with stallions. A bead of sweat slid across the helmet's brim. "Oh, helmet," she moaned, before lowering her head to nibble on the chin strap. When Sweetie Belle opened the door to the treehouse, she was greeted by the sight of Scootaloo rubbing her new helmet's moustache against her nose, feeling the stiff bristles. There was a definite moistness spreading between the hind legs of the Pegasus, and her wings were flared out to the side. "Sweetie Belle," Scootaloo said to her friend, dripping from her mane, "you came?" "Yes," said the unicorn. "Your parents were..." After a long pause, Sweetie Belle added, "Your parents were at school looking for you. Everybody is talking about how you just disappeared." Pegasus rolled her eyes. "Of course they go looking for her at school, or talk to the police, or ask around town. It never occurred to them to go running off in the woods on impulse, risking their lives in a desperate attempt to find their foal. Sensible decisions like that were what kept her parents on the boring side of town. Also alive, if you could call that the boring existence living." "I'll go back home when I'm ready," she replied, moving the helmet to rub against her cheek. "What are you doing with that helmet?" "We were in love." Scootaloo mentally prepared herself to defend her unconventional romance. Instead, Sweetie Belle was on the focus of the interior brim of the helmet, flashing at her seductively. Look at what? The helmet doesn't have a logo on it indicating it meets the specifics of the Equestrian National Standards Institute, or any other nationally recognized board of safety." "It doesn't matter," Scootaloo replied. "I love it. The helmet is unsafe. You have to get rid of it. You're just jealous of my hot and heavy helmet love." "It's evil!" Sweetie Belle lunged, gripping the helmet with her hooves and attempting to tuck it away from her friend. "I can't lose another helmet," cried Scootaloo, desperately clinging to the seductive safety gear with her forelegs. Her eyes brimmed with tears. "It's not NC approved," Sweetie Belle grunted, pulling on the helmet. "It's evil! Well, I'm not NC approved either. Are you going to throw me away?" Scootaloo's athleticism would have given her the advantage in this contest. However, her poor sleep the night before and the sweat on her body put her at a disadvantage. The Pegasus lost her grip and Sweetie Belle toppled backwards, stumbling over a chair and crashing to the ground. The helmet landed on the filly's chest, pinning her to the ground. "Helmet! No! She didn't mean it!" Scootaloo pleaded. The helmet did not respond, only glowering menacingly at the unicorn who had tried to stand between it and its new owner. Sweetie Belle kept her eyes shut, feeling the black chin strap draped across her face. The leather was brushing her lips. To be continued. Oh my god, there's gonna be rape.